Hey Wildlings, today I wanted to share with you a few books on my to-be-read list for this month of Samhain for my personal magical studies, and hoping that they will give you some inspiration for some reading to honour the Sabbath of Samhain. So the first book that I wanted to talk about was The Witchfinders, a 17th century English tragedy by Malcolm Gaskill. One of my practices for Samhain this month is to honour the reality and the history of the witches that came before me in England. I really felt it was important for me this Samhain to educate myself on the women who were accused and trialed of witchcraft back in the 1600s. So part of my practice this month is to basically read all the literature that I can get my hands on this, and this is basically perfect. And so I'll just read the blurb for you, but it says, "By the spring of 1645, civil war had exacted a terrible toll upon England. Disease was rife, apocalyptic omens appeared in the skies, and idolaters were detected in every shire." I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. "In a remote corner of Essex, two obscure gentlemen began interrogating women suspected of witchcraft, triggering the most brutal witch hunt in English history. Witchfinders is a spellbinding story of how Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, and John Stern extended their campaign across East Anglia, driven by godly zeal. Exploiting the anxiety and the lawlessness of the times and cheered on by the ordinary folk, they extracted confessions of satanic pacts, resulting in scores of executions." Now, I had never heard of any of the witch trials of England until recently. I found this amazing woman on YouTube who I'll link down below, and she was talking about a experience that she had as a child in a local church of hers where she saw the ghost of the Witchfinder General. That led me on this rabbit hole to basically start searching about what all that was about. And Matthew Hopkins, from what I know so far, was a witch hunter, of which he ascribed the title to himself. It wasn't officially given, but he was a witch hunter who was thought to have murdered 300 women in the space of 2 years in East Anglia. And East Anglia is the region around where I grew up. So I really felt it was important for me to try and educate myself on that whole topic, especially being so public about my own practices and just holding space for the women that came before me, so that I could be sitting here in front of you today talking about all of this stuff. So I have already started reading this, and it's very well written so far. I'm actually having to spend quite a bit of time. There's a lot of pictures as well in it, which is quite nice. It sort of breaks up the text a bit. But there's a lot of words in it actually that I'm having to go away and search because I don't know the meaning of them. So I really like that as well, because it's helping me to expand my own literature when I'm talking too. But this has been really interesting so far, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm going to try and read as much of it as I can before actual Samhain, as that is part of my honourings this month. The next one is kind of going down similar avenues, but this is the Book of English Magic by Philip Carr-Garm, who I've spoken about here on the channel in my unboxing of the Druid Plant Oracle, which went up a few weeks ago, and Richard Haygate. And I really am excited to get involved in this one because it's a bit more light-hearted, but it seems like a really nice book. And basically it's just got loads of little sections that talk about the history of magic in England, mythologies that are really prominent, such as King Arthur and Merlin. It also has some history bits as well. So I realised that I really don't know the history of my own country, and I know obviously in school they can only teach us so much in the space of time that we have, but in the English school system they tend to focus on obviously the world wars that had occurred. But other than that, you don't learn, or at least I didn't, we didn't get taught too much else really. So I've just been feeling this real deep pull to try and educate myself on as much as possible about the history of my own land, in terms of the political atmosphere and the religious atmosphere, and how that all played into what our society is here today and our culture here today in England. This just seems fascinating because it also has old traditional witchcraft spells that have been found in historical records, and the good thing is that this isn't a book that's just going to be read from cover to cover. I have a lot of really heavy books that I have to get through, and sometimes you just want to be able to flick it open on a random page and just get a little bite-sized bit of information rather than having to read an entire lengthy chapter. So this is what I'm really excited for with this book. It just makes it a bit more digestible, certain topics. But the blurb reads, magic runs through the veins of English history and culture, from the earliest Arthurian legends to the novels of Tolkien and J.K. Rowling, and from the Druids to Queen Elizabeth I's astrologer, Dr. Dee. Yet most people have no idea of the central role magic has played in England's past and still plays today. Through experiments to try and places to visit, as well as an historical exploration of magic and interviews with leading magicians, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied, the Book of English Magic will introduce you to the extraordinary world that lies just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. So it says how to plot a ley line, how to douse for water, learn the Druid tree alphabet, how to cast an Anglo-Saxon rune, which is interesting, how to perform a spell with candle magic, and learn about alchemy. And it's just a beautiful book as well. Now, speaking of heavy literature, I have a lot of books like this, really, really weighty books, but I love it, so I'm not going to complain. But that's why that book's going to definitely be beneficial for me. But this book I am so excited about. So this was recommended to me by Catherine, who owns Ye Old Witch Shop. I'll leave a link to it down in the description, and I exchanged a few messages with her on Instagram, just basically expressing my love for her work. She has absolutely beautiful witchcraft supplies on her site. Everything is crafted with such care and love and attention, and I could just tell that she really knew her stuff. And so I just wanted to reach out to her and ask if she had any literature that she recommended for the craft. I often find that a lot of the books that I get, I'm really disappointed by. I never feel like they go in depth enough or really give me the meat that I'm looking for in terms of the craft and its history and traditional witchcraft. So this one I'm really excited for. I'll try and pronounce the title, but if I butcher it, I'm so sorry. Annwn Gwyn, I'm pretty certain it is, and it says Sorcery and the Ancient Faery Faith, and it's by Robin Artisan. And it seems like a very extensive, in-depth historical account of traditions, practices, beliefs, and mythologies, stuff about the deities, anything that was essentially tied with the Northern Europe and the British Isles in their fairy witchcraft and their fairy belief system. So this is perfect for me as a hedge witch, because obviously I carry on these beliefs and these understandings of honouring our local land spirits and the beings that reside therein. So it says, remember what was forgotten. Annwn Gwyn is a comprehensive journey into the heart of the true old ways, the interanimistic way of encountering and reverencing the spiritual forces and persons who inhabit the sensual landscape of this world and the wider ranges of the unseen dimension of life. This tome begins with an in-depth analysis of the ancient fairy faith, or the pre-modern way of relating to the spirits of nature and the souls of the dead, as it emerges in historical tradition and folklore from Europe, the British Isles and Western Asia. It then reveals a complete modern grimoire of sorcerous and spiritual workings aimed at regaining and revitalizing these deep relationships with the powers of the land, and for attaining nearly any other need or desire through practical workings born in traditional metaphysics and techniques. I'm so excited. I have had a little read of it so far, and I absolutely am loving it. And one thing that I'm really finding beneficial as well in the books that I'm reading at the minute is I'm looking for books that are helping me to expand my own literature in the way that I communicate, so that when I'm trying to communicate concepts that might seem a bit far-fetched or difficult to formulate an explanation for, just being restricted to the human language, I find that these books can be quite helpful for helping me to discover new ways of explaining things. This book is so beautiful though, because as it said, it has charms and practices and rituals that you can actually take part in. There's another one there. It also has these really fascinating old language chants as well that you can do that are actually tied into historical practices as well that have taken place here on the British Isles. There's another one as well for the Horned Moon. So I think this is just going to be an incredible book, and I think this is going to be like my all-time favorite source potentially of the fairy faith, because a lot of the content that's out there now I feel is just way too fluffy. It's been very fantasy orientated, or just given a softness that kind of takes away from the depth and the sacredness that you can really experience by going out and actually working with the land spirits. So I'm really excited to get into this more. The last one that I have that is non-fiction is The Celtic Goddess of Inspiration, Cerridwen. I have had this book for years, like such a long time, but as some of you know, I've literally just finished my master's, which is why I'm now eating books, because I wasn't able to keep up with my reading for quite a long time. I was still reading, but just not anywhere near to the extent that I would have liked to, because I had so much reading that I had to do for my course. So this is one of those books that I just kept leaving because I really wanted to give it my full attention. The goddess Cerridwen is a goddess who I feel has been subtly working with me for many years, before I even had a name for her. And I would love to talk more on that in another video. But I'm really excited for this book in particular. Again, it's another super meaty one. I mean, it's super thick. So I'm really just going to take my time with it. But it seems to be a... Maybe we should just read the blurb of it. But it seems to be more of an account of the historical aspect of Cerridwen, so her presence in the Mabinogion, but also more of the modern day practices now as well. But there's a lot about her myths and sort of breaking down those myths and analysing them. But I'll read the blurb. It says, an authentic guide to the Welsh magical bard tradition. The witch goddess Cerridwen is the focus of devotion and reverence amongst witches and pagans around the world. This book traces Cerridwen's roots through the layers of history and myth, and it provides hands-on exercises. So I love it when they include stuff like that, because as much as I love to make my own, sometimes you just need a little bit of inspiration and to pull from. It provides hands-on exercises and visionary rites to help you realise her immeasurable power in your own magical practice. Based on years of intensive research by celebrated Welsh druid Christopher Hughes. Sorry, my tummy just rumbled then. I need lunch. This wonderful work shows you how to evoke the magic of ecstatic poetry, that's something that I've been doing for years now, and song as you join the lineage of magical bards who have explored the secrets of Annwn and Cerridwen's cauldron of inspiration. You will also discover first ever English translations from the ancient Welsh manuscripts, as well as Christopher's powerful approach to contemplative journeying, working with sigils and creating an altar. With rituals for initiation, affirmation and clarity, this deeply poetic book explores the transformative energies of the goddess of the witches. Now, although I have my own personal relationship with Cerridwen, which I feel is super important to establish with any spirits or deities that you're working with, to form your own understanding and basis and the way that you relate to them, I am really looking forward to just learning a bit more and getting in depth and potentially getting some inspiration for rituals and things like that. So I'm really excited for this one. And last but not least, we'll just finish with these two books here, which are some fiction novels. So these aren't my utmost priority to get through before Samhain. I definitely want to focus the majority of my attention on those, but I'm absolutely loving reading at the minute, and fiction is another good way to just relax the mind while still getting inspiration and learning things. So this one here, The Witch Bottle by Tom Fletcher, I got this last Halloween, so that is how long it's been. And again, I've just not had time to get round to it. But I think this will be a really nice, spooky, easy read that I can get through quite quickly. But the blurb says, the easy monotony of Daniel's job demands nothing from him other than dealing with unreasonable customer demands and the vagaries of his enigmatic boss. But things are changing. Daniel's started having nightmares, seeing things that can't possibly be there. Like the emaciated giant, which is so real he swears he could touch it, if he dared. or the ghost of a man with a black bag over his head. It's not just at night bad things are happening either, or just to him. People are uneasy, seeking unlikely solutions like witch bottles, protective wards to keep harm at bay. But not everyone is happy to find the locals meddling with witch bottles. Things are about to get very unpleasant. So this is set, I think, in Yorkshire, which is where my partner's from, and I love Yorkshire. I love the eeriness of it and the misty moors and all of that. I feel it's just perfect for Samhain. So this is just a bit of a spooky read that I can have with a nice cup of tea, nice and safe and cozy with my cat and my blanket and my partner in the house. But it's a nice way to just kind of get in the spooky spirit and the more light-hearted aspects of Halloween as well. And then the last one is one that I've posted quite a bit about on my Instagram if you want to follow me on there, the Celtic Faery. And this is The Forest Wife by Teresa Tomlinson. And this is basically a retelling of the Robin Hood lore, but from the perspective of Maid Marian. And this is actually the first one in a trilogy, and the way that she writes about Sherwood and just the interactions between the characters is so beautiful. I'm so immersed in it when I read it, and I'm so inspired, and it really just takes me into the enchanting world of Sherwood and how it would have been back in the day before it was deforested, how it is today. I did just recently post a video on some aspects of the Robin Hood lore when I was talking about the felling of the sycamore gap tree, which was known as the Robin Hood tree here in England. So if you want to check that out, that would be awesome as well. But it just gives you a little bit of insight into the work that I've been doing with Robin Hood and Maid Marian as archetypes of the Lord and Lady Greenwood recently. And I will speak more to that in another video in the future, but this book has just been a beautiful folklore to get immersed in. It's not particularly Samhain relevant, but I just feel like after everything that happened with Sycamore Gap and the lore of Robin Hood and Maid Marian really starting to take importance now, with lots of lessons for us to learn, this is just one of the books that I'm reading currently and that I'm going to continue to read as well throughout the month. I really hope you enjoyed this video, Wildlings, and if you did, please don't forget to subscribe to join us here on the channel where we explore green witchcraft and hedge witchcraft, and I hope I will see you in our next video.